Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome to Black Women Startup, where we are coming together across the world to bring knowledge, understanding, and wisdom to leaders all over. My name is Treyonda Towns, and I am a life transformational and mental health and wellness coach. Um, of the Flow Life Transformations, where I walk out a life strategy plan with individuals that have faced extreme life changes due to trauma, right? We know trauma experience and traumatic experiences can disrupt the livelihood at any point of anyone's life. And so, with that, part of my goal and part of our work is teaching them how to convert those experiences into tools of motivation to reset, revitalize, and rejuvenate their life and their purpose. Unfortunately, we live in a time where resilience is a part of human nature. However, society has encouraged the mindset to totally ignore and dispose of anything that is nothing good or negative because they say or it is thought that nothing good could come out of those negative experiences. But I pride myself on being an example of what I encourage others to do, right? I am good at it. I utilize these tools to nurture a mindset of seeing the positive even in the bad. And listen closely because remember what I said. I practice, right? I pride myself of encouraging others to use the negative experiences and find good in them, to train the mindset, change mindset of not just seeing bad and negative experiences, but allowing yourself to see the positive or converting key parts of negative experiences to become a positive, right? And utilizing those things to become tools that you don't continue in the negative pattern or to make those negative patterns transform and become positive patterns that could be vital and healthy and productive, not only to yourself, but those around you, right? And by way of doing that, I have become an author. I am a dual entrepreneur where I have created different outlets and different opportunities where individuals can tell those life stories of those experiences and they be vital tools to help others to continue the path of positive, restored, and motivated living. So, what does that look like? What does that look like when we talk about transformation? Transformation means to transform, to be from one thing to the other. And so I take pride in that when I see individuals that I have walked with that help put together a plan that brings them from one area of their life, which to some may have been the worst moment of their life, where they have lost hope and they have lost the drive to continue, and taking steps where it changes and bring about a new livelihood and motivation to create a whole nother mindset of how empowering and how transforming that could be through seeing that experience in another way, right? And in with that opportunity, part of the goal is to not just keep it for oneself, but to allow that to be tools that others are healed, that others are motivated, and others are driven to do the same. And so we talk about entrepreneurship. What does that mean? We talk about leadership. What does that mean? We talk about being a leader. what does that mean, right? To be a leader versus leadership, right? Leadership is being the one in charge, being the one that takes the responsible lead, but also lead and walk in a way where others feel welcome to walk with you. I'm not talking about leadership that is dominating, that is demeaning, and that is oppressive, but I'm talking about leadership that's open, that is vulnerable, that is transparent with those around. And that type of leadership is where we go and we can visually see what makes a strong leader when we talk about mental health and wellness. It's not always about the job, it's not always about business, it's not always about the performance, but we're talking about the behavior, the characteristics, and the values that makes up a good leader that opens the door for healthy leadership. And so I know this is different because most times when we talk about mental health and we talk about wellness and mental health wellness, the first thing that is brought to mind is some type of sickness, some type of mental illness, um, some type of breakdown, some type of meltdown. But in this aspect, I bring to you mental health and mental wellness in the realm of being healthy, that you are providing open safe space where others feel comfortable enough to follow your leadership, right? We've all have been in some type of situation where we have had to follow some type of leadership and where others have had chosen to follow us in our position and role as a leader. And so with that, just in my research and my study, we found that many have different ideas of leader and leadership. And so on this moment during this training, I want to highlight key areas that brings about 4 skill sets that would cause or entitle someone to be in a productive leadership role, right? 4 skill sets that is teachable, observable, and measurable. Okay. And so both of these are strengthening and brings about strength and opportunity for growth when we talk about the skill sets that are teachable, observable, and measurable. It's all part of our characteristics. And that set of skill sets or soft skills, if that's what you want to call it, which many you hear talk about soft skills and hard skills and all of the formal things that is part of an individual's productivity mode, whether they're an employee, an employer, entrepreneur, a student, a mentor, a mentee, apprentice, right? It's important that there's just certain things that are part of our character and part of our values that makes us good, productive leaders. One of those tool sets we're going to talk about is vulnerability. Another we're going to briefly go over is value. You will hear me talk about that often. Another valuable asset that is really important when we talk about leader versus leadership and leadership versus being a good leader is trust, right? That is a big issue in every relationship, professional, unprofessional, intimate, family, friends, community life, right? And another valuable asset we're going to talk about is being able to get up, right? To get up when we fall short of the most important, which is being vulnerable, our values, and trust. So let's start with being vulnerable. And what does that mean? Most people see being vulnerable as a state of weakness, but being vulnerable is not a state of weakness, right? It's when one is allowing themselves to face their fears, their self doubt, their heartfelt concerns, right? Whether it's through people, um, because we have to be mindful heartfelt concerns. Hurt people hurt people. And so when we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable to face and address those issues, we become the type of leadership and leader that we ourselves are appalled to have had to follow at times, right? Unflexible, demanding, oppressive, right? And so in the world of business, in this term of being an entrepreneur, in the office of being a Black business owner and entrepreneur, it is very important that part of our work and part of the mandate is to be mindful all times of the values and the standards that we set and the expectations that others have of us because of the total and the constant oppression or pressure to perform and produce higher and greater than our counterparts, right? We know this is to be true. So, with that, having a list of standards during these times are good, right? Vulnerability also gives us the courage to show up in life during times of uncertainty and uncomfortability. Allows us to be able to have those hard conversations during the time when conflicts may arise, right? Being courageous enough to show up fully and present to hear the other side's story, right? We hear that often that there's two sides to the story. There's your side, the other side, and there's the true side to the story. And so being okay with being vulnerable allows that to provide a space of learning where new behaviors and skills and unlearned and unproductive skills and attitudes can be transformed, where there's more positive and a more productive atmosphere for all involved, right? When we are in our moment of being emotionally exposed at times, it does peak that realm of anxiety, of uncertainty, and of uncertainty, where our vulnerability is challenged. But let's remember, vulnerability is so much needed. It is the core of every value set, every relationship, every opportunity where connection and relationship is needed and is important to get a work done. Okay. And so once we get past breaking past the mode of operating in that state of um, being afraid to open up and being vulnerable due to our emotions being on high, we cross over to what health and wellness um, is causing and calling for us to be in that realm of leadership, right? It's about being balanced. It's about having control over our stress levels. It's about knowing when to take a time out and to step away. It's about knowing to have the courage to deal with the shame and to have empathy when someone else is in need of having that space to be vulnerable, to mend, to be in a place that they can learn and that they too can give when it comes to the expectations of someone wanting to utilize the service that we provide or consume a product that we may offer. Vulnerability at times is that place where we learn to be okay with the instability of our foundation being shaken a little bit, but it's that skill that bridges courage building. It is the skill that breaks the fears of the barriers um, to being a great leader. It is how we respond to our fears, right? Our thoughts, emotions, our behaviors that we use to protect ourselves when we are afraid of being rejected, right? And so we want to practice that state of vulnerability that allows us to put down the guard or that armor or that coating that you may say is there that protect us from looking weak, right? And having an attitude that I am so strong that I could do this. Nothing breaks me. I don't have to bend. I don't have to listen because I am in charge. That state of mindset is unhealthy, right? It creates conflict, it creates tension, it creates unhealthy atmosphere. It creates an atmosphere, an attitude that can become very abusive and very uncomfortable to all involved. And so we combine that with our next most important character and skill. And that's learning to step into the realm and creating values. What is values? Values is that list of needs, wants, and must have within an environment, a circle, a project, or opportunity, and most definitely within your business that you want to create that others can respect and feel comfortable being in your presence, right? When we talk about values, we're talking about doing more, right? Not only our professional values, but practicing them, right? Not just talking about it, but being about it, as they say, right? So let's not just state and list values, but let's allow an atmosphere where others feel good about being in your presence. They feel good about recommending you and giving you a referral because they know there's a level of values and integrity that you will stand in and maintain that they can trust, right? Let's be clear about the belief and importance so that being intentional about our words, our thoughts, and our behaviors. So once again, we go back to what we talk about, healthy mindset, being vulnerable, that we're open enough to be transparent and to receive that when our characteristics or our actions are hurtful and demeaning to others, that we can allow our mindsets and our ways to be transformed by the values and standards that we set, right? We talk about values being rules of that standard that we set for our way of believing and existing. These are established by having an understanding, right, of our core values of sense of behaviors that align up with who we say we are. and what our business and our practices and our services offer, especially when we're calling ourselves coaches and life coaches, whether transformational, whether it's business, where it's strategists, where it's all these terms and phrases that we use to describe the work that we do. Does it line up with the values and the integrity that you stand in? Are you bringing life to others, or are you inflicting pain and illness on others through ways and intentions that is not of integrity, right? Being vulnerable combined with your values allows you to recognize when these values are out of alignment and needs to be corrected and balanced. It allows space for the cynics and the critics to not afflict us or affect us, right? When they bring us out of our context easily. And so being mindful that if we don't have values, standards, and vulnerability in place, the critics, the cynicals, the you can't do it, you won't make it, no one believe in you, no one will buy it, no one wants that. After a while, those things could break you down. But when you have values and you are striving to walk in integrity and you're allowing yourself to stay vulnerable, that closes the door where you're not broken down by those harsh words and those comments out of fear, and that it does not leave the gate open to bring self-doubt. And those hurtful comments and treatment does not transition or shift you out of who you are, a person of strength, a person of power, a person of integrity, a person of empathy, a person of innovation, someone as bringing life to others, someone that has the tools, the service, the product to expand and bring expansion to others and all things around you, right? We don't want to just exist. We exist to create and to continue life that is beautiful and that has been provided for us, right? And so that brings us into the next skill and tool set that's most definitely important for all of us, not just in our businesses, but in our daily living, in every relationship, whether you go to the doctor, whether you're driving down the street, whether you're going into the grocery store, some form or fashion, trust has been broken and challenged. But when we are talking about healthy businesses, healthy environments, healthy personal beings, we're talking about braving that trust, grasping within those moments where we know someone is not being fully honored. We know that we have been violated because we didn't receive the quality of service or product that was promised to us. We know that that client broke the contract, breached the contract, and then tarnished our name. But that's okay because our values and our vulnerability have allowed us to stay in a place that that trust or that mistrust or distrust does not have to contaminate or affect the next relationship, right? Trust is built, right? It's not always a given, it is built. It is a process that develops between two people, teams, and organizations. Trust is developed by the following ingredients being present. So even though others may break it, that doesn't mean that we cannot continue to put tools in place that help build the trust within each relationship that we have the privilege to have amongst us, right? And so, boundaries being relatable, being accountable in our practice and in my practice as a restorative justice practitioner, right? I work with a lot of young people where trust has totally been violated. We're looking in a time, we're living and looking at a time where violence and all kinds of inhumane acts are happening, trafficking. And so, doing the work that I do, supporting individuals and providing untraditional, non traditional safe spaces to heal from all these violations, one of the biggest tools that we talk about when we do our work is being accountable, even when it's uncomfortable. We may not see how our imbalance at that moment. Of not wanting to be vulnerable or one of our values is not showing up has inflicted some type of uncomfortability or distrust among someone else. But being okay with hearing their story and being okay with the story of how we have maybe hurt them so that we can take accountability and find the place to bring healing, which is so important, right? Our integrity, not being judgmental, and learning to be generous, right? Being generous with being forgiving of others that may not appreciate or respect what we have give, but that doesn't mean that we're not giving what someone else may find valuable, right? And so that brings us to where the struggle comes in and where a lot of times it is avoided because of the uncomfortability of what that looks like when trust has been broken. But if we remember that these skills are direct to the potential of a client causing or a client wanting to talk about it, or a person willing to talk about the potential instead of talking to a client when those those moments arise, when they may come to us about not liking our service or not liking how we said it or not um, appreciative of going out of our way where we felt we were going out of our way, that may not have been enough for them, um, or how we may have offended someone, right? Are we in a healthy place where we can take that criticism and allow it to build us into being better? Not just for that moment, not just for that time, not just in this place, for where we're going in our future, where we plan to go worldwide and nationally. I don't know about you, but I don't just want to be a provider of healing within my inner circle or my community, but I would like to be one that could be trusted to bring healthy and health and healing all over the world, right? So when we combine that trust with our values and with being vulnerable, right? We open ourselves up to being available to not just a one on one or a couple, but within communities, within organizations, and among teams that have trust issues and not ignore at that expense of our performance or their success because we have negated the importance that all three are important to build trust continually. Not just get comfortable because someone has trusted or shown an inch of that they may trust you, right? Because I don't believe, in my opinion, even though someone may have action that they trust you at that moment, that doesn't mean that that trust is ongoing. So it's a continual building. Okay. And so keeping in mind that we need to continue to work on that skill in building trust to be successful in anything and everything that you do, unless you're going to be a silo sitting in a room building in a business just with yourself, right? And I don't believe that's what any of our goals are, right? And when things do go wrong and that disappointment hits, do you stop? Do you give up? Do you throw away all that you have invested in? No. Vulnerability, trust, and values will empower you to get up again. It equips you, no matter how many times that it may need to happen, that you can get up again and start all over wherever you need to start all over, right? Dreams are too valuable. Business are invested in so many ways. So throwing it away and giving up is not an option. So when we have vulnerability, we have trust, and we have values, we understand that this is the juice or the force that gives us to get up when we fall down or overcome the mistakes or to correct the mistakes that's been made when we're facing setbacks, when it allows us to be receptive to transitions and interruptions, right? We talked about transformation, right? Learning how to take the breakdowns of communication, the low numbers in our dollars, the rejection from others that don't believe in us, the life hap, illnesses, losses, family, homes, cars, all those things are part of life. But do you stop and give up? So we talk about healthy mindsets. We talk about transforming our mindsets and our actions and our values in a way that will allow that energy to create in us in such a way that our flow of positive productivity and productive force is not interrupted, that we can take negative that come to us and we can create and we can transform that into being the best of the best of the best of what they say we cannot be, but we are able to show them that what we are already, that we are valuable, we are important, we do have something to offer, our products are great, our service is excellent, right? And so opening up the door to gain strength and to learn how to do good within that sometimes is so hard to do. But I once again want to remind you that in our transformation of our mindset, of being healthy and in a healthy mind state and state of being, that we can bring the best that we have to offer, standing in our trust, our vulnerability, in our values, right? It helps us to own up to the story that we have to offer, right? I talked about me being an author, right? And so with that, and all that I had been through in that journey, having those things in place, it allowed me to own up to my story and take ownership of it and becoming an author, that we are the authors of our finish and not what people say our circumstances and our demise to be the ending chapter of our story. right? So research says that leaders utilize these skills as part of the courage building process so that their behavior is more in the realm of courageous and risk taking, not fear, not doubt, not apprehension, which brings about anxiety, what brings about unhealthy eating, what raises our stress level where we're dealing with anxiety over the top, where we begin to isolate and our productivity and productive levels drop, right? It is important to take and learn how to take disappointments instead of like as tools for the next level of your life and learning to utilize that for your future situations, which gives way for the opportunity to get curious about your trigger, about your emotions and negative replay in your head that keeps one from the real fact. Let's learn how to brave our story and continue to practice building trust. Continue to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, that we are okay with being uncomfortable, and that we are okay with the uncomfortable conversations that bring about correction, that brings about healing, that brings about success. Let's be okay with setting standards and values that causes us to be unmovable when our integrity is at risk of being compromised. We are working too hard. Lives are being changed. We are bringing impact in the work, the services, the products that we offer. And if we continue to make these four skills a part of our daily being, activity, and lifestyle, we can't go wrong. And if we go wrong and fall off, it's okay to know it's all right to start all over. Because at the end of the day, we have grasped hold and we have learned to rise again. So, with that, I just want to thank you once again. And I hope I brought something to offer, something valuable that can be used. I am your teacher, trainer, host, facilitator, life transformational mental health coach, restorative justice practitioner, Treyonda D. Towns of Flow Life Transformations, where we believe if we faithfully live out wisdom that is brought about our daily experiences, we shall not and cannot fail. Thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing me to bring this to you as one of the team members of Black Women Startup. Have a good day.